let's get to this breaking news, because I do think this is a significant story. According to multiple sources now, the ACC is working to add Stanford and Cal. And obviously, you know the complexities of the ACC conference. They have all this strife around Clemson and Florida State. You know, there was some reporting today from The Athletic that Florida State was trying to get out to get to the SEC, and that they were going to raise the funds, the $120 million. There's all kinds of issues. I would remind you, getting out of the ACC is not just about paying the $120 million. You have to get out of your grant of rights. You can pay the $120. That does not release your TV product. So keep that in mind. But of course, you know that now the Pac-12 is dead. They have 4 remaining teams after this season: Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, and Washington State. And it, excuse me, would appear that Stanford and Cal have a great interest in joining the ACC. Now, I think the biggest question is ACC or Mountain West. Certainly as far as high profiles go, we can all agree the ACC is going to bring you more reach, which, you know, on this show, we always tell you more reach equals more money. From a money standpoint, that makes a lot more sense. But from a logistics standpoint, being the only Western teams in the ACC, Stanford and Cal, I don't know, Jake, how that works out travel-wise. I think the biggest question is, are Stanford and Cal better going to the ACC or the Mountain West?
Yeah, I mean, I think the travel is obviously the biggest hurdle, but what I think is really not negotiable is the fact that, you know, the ACC just simply is going to make you much more money than the Mountain West would. And of course, that, you know, if you were to go to the Mountain West, that TV, deal, that grant of rights would obviously have to be renegotiated, and that number would go up. And so, you know, it wouldn't be $4 million that Stanford and Cal would be getting. Obviously, you know, I would feel comfortable saying they'd get 10, 11, maybe even 12 million, something like that. But there's no getting away from the fact that ultimately, you know, the ACC, in my opinion, is a better fit, even with the travel, because what you need, like he just said, is you need reach, but ultimately you need revenue. You know, last week was a historic week in college football. We saw teams, you know, going places that 10 years ago we never thought was possible. We never thought the Big 12 would be in this position. We never thought that, you know, the Pac-12, when it was USC versus Texas and Vince Young and all this great stuff, at that time you never would have thought to yourself that, man, this conference is going to dissolve and they're going to lose most of their membership to the Big 12 and a small chunk of it to the Big 10. You never would have thought that. So if I'm Stanford and Cal, I'm not going to take a risk on a low money grant of rights situation. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and find the most reliable and stable financial position that I can get myself into. And then I'm going to task the marketing team with coming up with a positive spin for how in the hell we're going to get on the jet and fly across the country, man.
Listen, man, I don't disagree with that. I'm not saying you're wrong. The ACC TV deal is $23 million a year till 2037. How can you do that if you're Stanford and Cal? And by the way, there is a California Board of Regents meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time. If you're Cal, you're already in a financial hole. We've talked about this at length. Memorial Stadium, which is the football stadium in Cal Berkeley, where Cal plays their home games, has been a financial disaster since they had it rebuilt. They really have not been able to win on any kind of consistent level. They're on the verge of another coaching change after this season. How are you going to go from the Pac-12 10-4 to the ACC when you just said no to essentially the same deal, $20 million a year from Apple? Now you're going to the ACC and you're going to add significant travel costs. And I'm not even talking about football and basketball. I think one of the things that people forget about so much is that at most universities, your travel cost is eaten up by softball and baseball and tennis and golf and gymnastics. When you have to fly across the country with your soccer team, if you are Cal and you're going to go and play Georgia Tech, that's not a overnight or flying on a Friday for a Saturday morning football game, fly home Saturday afternoon. That is a week's long trip. And there's probably a lot of that trip where you end up in a van at some point. and you're driving up and down the East Coast. You're driving to Georgia Tech. You're like, I look at this idea, and this is, I think, the first time, and Jake, back me up on this. I think this is the first time I'm going to say this. I agree with the people who would argue this is terrible for the college athlete. This, because if you are the Stanford rowing team, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
And the bigger question is, if you're Stanford and Cal, how many of these sports do you eliminate to avoid this exact problem?
Well, and I think that's really the crux of the conversation. Like, obviously, travel is a huge hurdle, and I think now that realignment is here, this is a topic that now has to be vetted out. Hey, how can we, what is the solution for a West Coast team being in a predominantly East Coast conference, and finding, like, logistically how we can make it work for our student athletes? I think that is a conundrum that can't just be thrown under the rug and said, well, it doesn't work for us. But we're past that now. College athletics is in a position now where, because of realignment, and I saw everyone over the weekend complaining and saying the world was ending for college athletes because of realignment. I saw that. And while I don't disagree that some of these programs are going to have tougher travel schedules, the reality of the situation is that any athlete, if you love what you do, if you're at a point where you're playing D1 college athletics of any variety, even if you throw football and basketball to the side, if you're on the rowing team, dude, if you love it that much, most of those kids are going to be willing to put up with it. That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it proper, but they're going to put up with it. And so I think if you're these institutions, you would rather be in a place where you're saying, okay, we're going to make $23 million a year on linear, not on Apple, right? Which is a big difference also. I don't think it is the same deal. You're on linear. You're not just on Apple, but $23 million a year, and we're going to have to travel a lot more. So how can we work with our other athletic, departments to make that travel a little bit better? I think that's the conversation ADs have to have. You have to streamline it somehow, and I don't know what that answer is. Yeah,
with the ACC grant of rights, I don't see this as possible. I truly do not. And then I ask this question very frankly: how much damage has Florida State done to this conference? Because if you add Stanford and Cal, are you going to give them a full share? Because Florida State's been sitting here bitching and moaning about how much money they've made the conference and how they deserve the bulk of the money, and they went out so they can go get their SEC $50 million a year. So here's the question. If you're Stanford and Cal, should you expect to join the ACC at a full share?
Yes.
I don't think Florida State's going to approve that.
Well, I don't think it's up to Florida State. The paperwork says what the paperwork says. And again, I also think it's a really important point in realignment. Institutions can be upset. They can complain. They can run their mouth. They can hire lawyers for a year to go through the grant of rights and find loopholes. Like, we know Florida State's been doing all that stuff. The reality of the situation is you can bark as loud as you want to bark. You're not getting out of this thing. And it's not up to Florida State whether Stanford and Cal get a full share. Now, will they be upset? Will that cause a big problem with Florida State? Well, it's going to.
But if Florida State, and again, I just disagree with you. If Florida State causes problems more than they already have, and I think they will, that's just my opinion.
I agree with you on that. They will.
I think Florida State is never going to approve, and maybe one vote doesn't matter. They're never going to approve full shares for Stanford and Cal, because Florida State thinks that they are just sliced bread, brother. They think they are the top of the mountain. I think they're full of baloney. I think that's all hot air. I think Florida State is committing the Kliavkoff, which is let's overvalue ourselves significantly and trash everybody who's around us, who we need to break the grant of rights so it won't happen. But then when Stanford and Cal come to the conference, we're going to demand that they get a 50% share. So you really think Stanford and Cal are coming to the ACC for $12.5 million?
Go to the Mountain West.
That's absurdity.
Yeah. At that point, you go to the Mountain West.
Because if you add, and this is, again, I think this is a big part of this equation as we talk about breaking news, that the ACC is working to add Stanford and Cal. If you are Stanford and Cal and you go and you get gross money, let's say, not net, gross, the check you're getting is $23.5 million. Let's just say they get a full share in the ACC. What's that net out to?
God, it has to only be probably 10 to 12, right? After travel costs and
travel,
everything.
hotel.
Yeah.
You're going to have to staff up because you're going to need more educational infrastructure for those kids on the road. Like,
Yep.
I don't see any scenario where this version of the SEC is better. And it's going to take more TV money. It is going to take more than just Stanford and Cal. You had better get, and I never thought I'd say this, Oregon State and Washington State. You need places where you don't have to go travel the coast, because you're going to go to the Virginias, you're going to go to Carolina, you're going to go to Florida State and Miami, and I don't see how this makes any sense at all.
Well, I
just don't.
Look, I don't think it makes it doesn't obviously. It's not like 1 + 1 = 2. We're far from it being simple. But I think the reality of the situation is that geography is obviously the biggest challenge in this whole thing. I mean, again, if Stanford was in Pennsylvania, they'd already be in the conference. Let's be honest about it. But they're not. And I don't think that while Stanford can be in the Mountain West, like they could do that, but I don't think they're a great fit in the Mountain West just on its face. And the problem is that the Big 10 and the Big 12 don't want to expand more right now necessarily, right? They don't want to balloon their conferences up to, 20 and 22. And like, they don't want to get to that level yet, because they know that ACC grant of rights is going to be a problem in 2036. And really, if we're honest about it, those conversations are probably starting in 2034, right? The ACC is going to want to get on with business as soon as they can get on with business. So if I'm the ACC, I'm desperately trying to court Cal and Stanford, because I want any angle I can get to reopen negotiations with my TV partners on our grant of rights. And I'm not saying that I've read every single word in their grant of rights and their legal documents, but I got to believe if you're adding to the conference and you can start a conversation with a TV partner, maybe there's a path to reworking this whole situation. Because if the 2036 deadline was to be massaged and moved, and you could renegotiate that, and Florida State could pack their stuff and leave, and you could get rid of that whole conundrum, like, okay, there's things that we can work on in conversation. But right now, the travel's a huge problem. And the money's a huge problem.
This is stupidity. Look at this. Look at this map of the ACC. And how practical is this? Your western enclaves are Louisville, Kentucky, and South Bend, Indiana. And you're already, I'm not even talking about Boston College.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, North Carolina State. I'm not even talking about Miami, or I'm talking about just how arduous is it to get your track and field team and all their equipment to Louisville? How arduous is it to get your water polo team to Raleigh, Durham, so that you can do a Georgia Tech, Clemson, Wake Forest, Carolina, Duke, NC State tour?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think, it's funny, having spent times around like minor league teams and professional teams, like travel is something that every sports organization has to deal with. The biggest difference here, though, and I think the main thing here is just the sheer size of what we're talking about, right? It's one thing to move, like in the NFL, it's one thing to move, probably 400 people, right?
Probably.
Like you've got a 50 man roster, all the head coach. Okay, let's call 500 people for a road trip in the NFL, just to be generous. 500 people go to London for the London series, or Germany for the Germany series. You understand that in the NFL, they go out a week in advance. That's how they do that. And
on
some
a
teams
chartered
go further.
Flight.
Right.
They go out on a chartered flight. They have coach class buses. So, and again, I'm not even worried about basketball. I am not worried about football, right? That's all built-in infrastructure.
Yeah.
I'm worried about softball. I'm worried about hockey. I'm worried about, I look at some of these club sports, those die. It's over. They're dead. There's no way to, if you're Cal, are you driving a truck across the country for your track and field team, for your, rowing? Again, I'll go to rowing. I'll go to any of these, baseball and softball. Those are not revenue generating sports, but they're major men's and women's sports programs.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going on a 2-week road trip to the great eastern, southeast corner of the country?
Yeah, I think that's what they're looking at right now. I don't know how else you would do it. And I think this other question that I saw posed a lot over the weekend was, hey, why can't we get to a place in college sports where football and basketball are separate from, the rest of the non-revenue generators from a grant of rights perspective? Like, just because, as an example, Oregon in football and basketball is in the Big Ten, why can't their conference affiliate? Right. Notre Dame, perfect example, right? Free agent in football, ACC affiliate, and everything else, right? Like, why can't we do that when it comes to realignment? And the answer is the grant of rights system is broken. It does not work from a number of different angles, but there's not a better solution right now.
Because nobody puts college swimming on ESPN.
Yeah.
You don't often see track and field, cross country, water polo, lacrosse, field hockey, soccer, women's soccer, men's college soccer. Maybe once or twice a year you accidentally trip and fall on that.
Well, it's like the College World Series in softball or baseball, or like the big championship time in the season. Sometimes you will see, college and baseball and softball obviously are always on ESPN, but like soccer, or like sometimes you'll see lacrosse. Like, there are some one-off opportunities that happen, but the issue is that there's no good system in place that's universally accepted among the hundreds of member institutions, where you can have your football program and basketball program in one conference and everyone else can stay local to minimize travel costs.
Think about Stanford volleyball.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding, there's a chance a lot of these lesser sports go away. I can't see baseball, softball, volleyball going away. At Stanford, I don't think they're ever going to eliminate swimming.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you're a lacrosse player, it sucks. This is the question I always have. You're making billions of dollars in the NCAA, and we're talking about eliminating educational opportunities for young people in this country because we can't get conference realignment right.
Yeah.
Because George Kliavkoff and Larry Scott are incompetent imbeciles who don't know how to operate in college sports.
Facts.
That's why this conversation's happening. And it's again completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
We should be talking about the Big 12 being dead and the Pac-12 dominating, but you had two guys running this conference who couldn't do it. So now we're talking about Stanford and Cal joining the ACC and killing lower level sports.
Yeah.
It's
a tragedy. There's
brutal.
No way around it, dude. I mean, some people will tell you that using the word tragedy to describe this situation with the remnants of the Pac-12 is too strong. And I'm on the contrary. I think it's proper. I think it perfectly describes the conundrum that these four schools find themselves in. We haven't even gotten to bad budgeting in athletic departments or bad business ops in athletic departments, right? Like at least Stanford, and this is kind of what we talked about a lot last week. Dude, Stanford is quite literally one of the best athletic programs or athletic departments in the entire country, which is why conferences want Stanford.
You had 12 teams in the Pac-12. You let one of them, Carol Folt at USC, cut you off at the knees and you never recovered from it. And you had 11 other presidents. Well, let's call it 10 because UCLA went with USC.
Sure.
You had 10 other presidents who just were like, nah, George has got this. George Kliavkoff is totally in control.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we are where we are today. And I don't know how to explain it. And I'll be honest with you, it really frustrates me. It really frustrates me that this Pac-12 is dead. And we're getting all kinds of press conferences now. And like I listened to Bobby Robbins at Arizona today talk about the situation in the conference and why the Pac-12 melted down. And as we talk about this whole ACC, Stanford and Cal thing, I want you to listen to this bite from Bobby Robbins, the president at the University of Arizona, and listen to the way he describes what was pitched to the conference by George Kliavkoff and his team on Apple.
I think the keys were the $23 million a year per school and no games on linear access. I think those were the two things that were problematic for people when they were evaluating the long-term sustainability of the contract, and of course that it was subscription-based.
Dude, I mean,
unbelievable.
You're asking a Power 5 conference to, so wait, look, we got to get travel done. We got to get budgeting done. We got to get all this stuff done to make this huge machine of a business run. And then we still have to sell subscriptions. That's incredible. And the best point I feel like you've made so far is that, hey, there's all these billions of dollars. The well is not dry. In fact, it's quite the opposite, yet we can't get this figured out.
So frustrating. And I look at all of this talk with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West are supposedly, according to our sources anyway, in talks for a merger. And I feel like there's a drag race going on between the Mountain West and the ACC. And I would agree with you on Stanford. Stanford feels like that brand does not feel like a comfortable, logical fit in the Mountain West.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as we've known, and if you listen to the show, you know we nailed conference realignment. We knew USC and UCLA were not going to be out west by themselves in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that. And now they've got Washington and Oregon. Solves their financial trouble. Done. Like their travel stuff, like you can handle the occasional trip out to see Maryland. You can handle the occasional trip out to see Rutgers. Because the most of your stuff is in a good travel zone. But when you look at this right here, ask yourself this question. You're looking at Oregon State going to the Mountain West. What did the Big 12 not get in expansion? What did you say to me today? Hey, by the way, Brett Yormark didn't get
Pacific time zone, a dedicated Pacific time zone conference, a team that, or not a team, an institution that is located truly in the Pacific time zone. Because everyone's like, oh, well, wait, the Arizona schools, Arizona and ASU, they're Pacific time zone part of the year. Yeah, that might be true, but they're not in the Pacific.
Arizona's in the mountain time. in the mountain time zone, essentially.
Right. And so Brett Yormark wants, hey, you're on the west coast of the country. You are Oregon State, full-time Pacific time zone team.
Gonzaga.
P5, basketball, football, Gonzaga, basketball only, but great athletic department, huge value to the Big 12. That's what Brett Yormark wants. And so that's why I really am confused as to why Oregon State got left out, because Stanford and Cal, I can kind of understand at least, right? Like, okay, Stanford's a great athletic department, one of the best in the country. Unfortunately, though, they struggle to make money in their athletic department,
yes.
Right? So that, unfortunately, right now in today's climate is a big issue. Oregon State, on the other hand, while they are also not a nationally relevant team, they are a team that can cover their costs with their athletic department, right? They're a team that's a 10-win football program. I could easily see Oregon State scratching into the top 25, most seasons. Like, they're a team that's moving the right direction. So you give them funding, you give them new opportunity, you figure that's a team that can come up, and they're in the Pacific time zone. So I'm really surprised, frankly, that Oregon State got left out. But unfortunately, it's a numbers game.
And by the way, I'm not doing the Arizona time argument today. Arizona never.
So that's how it's going to be.
Arizona never changes time. They never change time. It's always, like right now, it's always 2:25 in Arizona. Because they don't. So this idea that Arizona's fully in the Pacific time zone, which I see in the comments, they're not.
Yeah,
they're not. So Brett Yormark didn't get the Pacific time zone. Now, yeah, Gonzaga and Spokane, where you had Oregon State and Corvallis, okay, it solves that problem. But I am not convinced, and I know that Oregon State has been, in the last 48 hours, talking to the Big 12. I am not convinced that they're going to get that Pacific time zone with Oregon State. I would more believe, because we heard very passionately on Saturday, that the Big 12 was talking to Gonzaga about joining the conference. And Gonzaga is a very big lift to the Big 12, because they play every sport pretty much but football.
Gonzaga.
Basketball powerhouse, but things like a baseball program that's amazing. Gonzaga actually brings a lot of athletic value. And this is the problem with not going after Stanford. Because Stanford, and I know you hate when I say this, Stanford is arguably the best athletic department in the country. They win. Now, granted, they've been down in football and basketball, but they have shown you when they spend money and resources, they win. They're one of the best athletic departments in the country. And yet they're going to wind up in the ACC. And I hate it. And if I am the Mountain West, Gloria Navarra, as the commissioner, has to be aggressive right now. They have got to get Oregon State and Washington State. It is a must. It helps them with their TV partners. It will get them more money in their TV contract. And if it is true, I've heard 3-4 times in the last 2 days, San Diego State is talking to the Big 12 as well, which I don't believe that deal gets done. I think San Diego State much more values continuity, and I think they are licking their wounds from the Pac-12. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with those schools.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just going to sit here and tell you on this ACC Stanford Cal story. Number one, you look at what's on the docket tomorrow morning in Berkeley, and it is a Board of Regents meeting, and they're specifically talking about UC Berkeley Pac-12 conference membership.
Pack this thing up. We're out of here.
This meeting, which is a closed session, is 100% about Cal Berkeley athletics. So the wheels are turning. And I think something's going to happen. Again, I think these things generally take 5 to 7 business days to get done.
Yeah.
That's what we've seen in this cycle. And I have no doubt this week that more business will be done. I do. Okay, less of us, more of you. I want to remind you while you're hitting the like button, and please, if you are not subscribed to the channel, all 2,000 of you watching the show right now, we are trying to get to 25,000 subs by kickoff of football season. We are just 502 away from 23,000. If you're not subscribed, can we get that done right now? Let's do it. Hit the like button. If you're new to the show, our minimum is 1,000 likes a show. But we'd really like to get to 23,000 today. That is just 502 subs. Hit the like button, hit subscribe. We really appreciate that. I want to remind you this week, we are giving away tickets to see Baylor and Texas. That is in Waco. That is on the 23rd of September. And it's presented by our good friends at TryDayTrading.com. It's really easy to enter this contest. For all of our Texas contingent, bless you, friends. We love the fact that we have a huge Baylor following. We love the fact that we have a huge Texas Longhorn following on the show. Thank you guys for being here. We love every one of you. This is your contest. Get to TryDayTrading.com/Monty, and all you have to do is sign up for your $10 trial membership at TryDayTrading.com. That's all you have to do. It's a $10 charitable donation, so really at the end of the day, it is a tax write-off, and you get 30 days of awesomeness with TryDayTrading.com. I'll remind you quickly, if you didn't make $1,000 at work today, if you hate your boss, if you're pissed you're back in the office, if you're upset about the job you're doing or your soul is dying, start your own business. Work for yourself. Do it with our friends at TryDayTrading.com. I'm telling you, part-timers make $300 to $500 a day, doing about an hour and a half of work in the morning. We have so many listeners that are part-time day traders now. They program their algorithms in the morning. They go to work, they come home, and they count how much money they made that day in day trading. You can do it full-time. You can do it part-time. You can work from home. You don't have to worry about your boss because you're your own boss. Well, you should probably shower occasionally, but you know, TryDayTrading.com. So go there, sign up for the $10 charity. Show us that you're into the 30-day trial membership for your $10 charity donation. You're entered to win the contest.
Yep.
The tickets to see Texas at Baylor September 23rd. We'll announce the winner on Friday. We've had a good bit of people have entered the contest already. Telling you, it's going to change your life. TryDayTrading.com. $10 30-day trial membership. Sign up. take a screenshot, tag us on Twitter or Instagram, The Monty Show, Monty, The Monty Show, to hook it up. All right, let's get your comments in here. Anything on conference realignment you want to talk about? My passionate take today is we got to stop slandering the members of the Pac-12 that left the conference. We got to stop doing that. I thought Taylor Randall at Utah today was spectacular. He really, I thought, laid out everything that you wanted to know about why Utah did. But listen to what Taylor Randall says. He's asked a really poor question here. But listen to his answer when he's asked about television.
Dr. Crow, in his remarks on Saturday, referred to the media overlords. Do you believe that what happened with the Pac-12 happened because Fox and ESPN find these schools more valuable apart than they do together?
I'm just going to quote Harlan, give me a break.
That's fair.
No, anyway, look, media is part of it, but so is building an incredible league that wants to stay together. When you think about this from a university president's perspective, you're looking broader than just the dollars and cents. You got to keep an athletic program healthy, so it's got to meet some minimum viability for sure. But on the margin, you're not going to choose for $1 million or $2 million. Here, you're thinking about the long-term view of the university and where you need to position it. And I'm sure that's what the other presidents were doing as well.
Stop blaming the universities. Stop blaming the TV industry. Go to the source. You had, and the universities carry some blame for the incompetence of Larry Scott and George Kliavkoff in the Pac-12.
Right.
There's no doubt about that.
Right.
Stop blaming ESPN for, your dog crapping on your rug. Not everything is ESPN's fault, man. Not everything is Fox's fault. The Pac-12 had deals they could have made and chose not to make them. And then they got outmaneuvered by Brett Yormark in the Big 12. And really, they got outmaneuvered by ESPN. They got outmaneuvered by USC and UCLA and Stanford Oregon and Washington. They got outmaneuvered, period.
Sorry, folks, that's what it is.
Blaming the universities that find themselves in the Big 10 and the Big 12 as being, they're just money grubbing. So college sports shouldn't be worried about money when Cal's broke, when we know that Washington is very tight financially. Washington State's broke as a joke.
Yeah.
Come on now. That's not realistic. There you go. Monty's passionate take of the day. That's what you get.
For real.
That's why you're
nice,
here.
Dude. Nice.
And you're welcome. Cleveland rocks. First one in today. Rocks, good to see you. How about the comment made by the Arizona State AD the very next day after entering the Big 12 about Morgantown?
Mm-hmm.
It was arrogant and unprofessional. The response from the West Virginia AD was pure mic drop on X. He means Twitter.
Mm-hmm. X.
I don't know how many other ways we can say this. Ray Anderson, the athletic director at Arizona State, and Michael Crow, the president at Arizona State, are incompetent. They're just not good at athletics. Michael Crow, the president at Arizona, is phenomenal everything else. Just keep him out of athletics, hire a competent athletic director who can actually speak without embarrassing himself in the university.
Right.
And doesn't hire his best friends and refuses to fire his best friends. Herm Edwards. Hire competent people. Michael Crow, I don't know why he keeps Ray Anderson around. Ray Anderson quite literally said, I'm not even aggrandizing. He said we're a top 15 program at our best, which means they're 15th or lower, and their best is 15th as a football and basketball
what are you talking
program.
about, man?
Congratulated Bobby Hurley, the ASU basketball coach, and Duke legend Bobby Hurley for turning over his entire roster in the portal 2 years in a row. That's not a good thing. That's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know what, Rox? I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. I think it's just crazy. Kaufman for $5. The Monty Show coming to you live from Big 12 country.
Oh,
I mean,
Big 12 country. Now, remember, still got one more year left in Pac-12 country.
But I can see 100 truck stops right out the window. Amazing today that across the mountain region, truck stops popping up everywhere here in the truck stop conference.
I might add the fuel cost is at discount right now too.
Flying J's everywhere.
Yeah.
Truck. Has anybody figured out why truck stop conference is an insult?
No.
I still haven't figured that out.
Me
and
either.
I love that truck stop conference is calling the Pac-12 flyover conference.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Planes fly over every conference.
Yeah.
Just saying. I'm over here trying to figure it out, man. K-Dub with $1.99 says, any update on Gonzaga and other basketball schools to the Big 12? I think the succinct update is it's not if, it's when with Gonzaga.
Yeah.
And I still am not convinced UConn's getting into the Big 12. I'm just not convinced of that.
Yeah, I think it's too much of a pain in the ass, dude. I think the football program is a problem. I think there's not a lot of incentive. Again, you don't have that ace in the hole with geography, right? You're an East Coast team, not a Pacific time zone team.
Yeah.
So, if UConn was in Washington, let's say, or Oregon or California, and they had a bad football program, but this dynamite basketball program, we're having a different conversation. But unfortunately, they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to add Gonzaga. And I think once these four schools in the Pac-12, Oregon, why do I keep saying Oregon?
I don't know.
It's time for Buckshot.
Oh, okay.
You know what?
If you feel like you need a boost right now.
The brain and the tongue are not like synced up here at the truck stop.
Well, having tongue synkage is really, ideal.
Well, that was last night. But the point is, in the truck stop right now, the clutch is the clutch and the brake pedal in seventh gear and shit. Okay, cheers.
Pardon me.
See, what happened was I just popped a Buckshot. It's all going to be fine. Buckshot from our good friends at Bucked Up Energy, 200 milligrams of caffeine. You guys, I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And I continue to tell you that, one, my voice is not healed as we had hoped that it would be today. Still have a little bit of a cough.
I'm for real.
We actually took bets on it today. We thought my voice was a hundo P because I was able to drop a massive, loud, echoing F-bomb on the 15th tee box yesterday. I got to tell you, that was a great test.
Oh, my God.
It echoed off the mountains up at Canyons Resort. I felt not bad at all about it, but I thought my voice was healed.
Yeah.
But I will say, I did lose another 1.5 pounds over the weekend. We're down 40 pounds now.
Boom.
Right? So we're in great shape. I give it all to my friends at Bucked Up Energy because, listen, when I tell you guys, hey, get to buckedup.com, promo code Monty20 to save 20% off your purchase. Collagen peptides. They have the best protein powder I've ever used. My wife is training for this triathlon I always tell you guys about. She's using their endurance product. Hook it up, buckedup.com, promo code Monty20 in the description below. Get a free sampler pack of their new Buck bars. I hate protein bars. I've said it for years. The Buck bar is not a protein bar, friends. It's a piece of dessert. It is indulgent. I look forward to it every day. And its number one ingredient is not sugar. It's not oil. I was fighting it. It's whey protein isolate.
Yes.
The purest form of protein, whey protein isolate. Get it in the description below. Tell them you heard about it on the Monty Show. Promo code Monty20 to get 20% off your purchase at buckedup.com. Gary, what's up, my guy? $2. SEC, ACC merger. The sack.
See what he did there?
It's the sack of.
It's a combo between the SEC and the ACC, right? And we removed some letters and it spells sack because, we're children on the program.
There's no way to spell balls with SEC and ACC.
Yeah,
so,
Program.
Sack.
And stuff.
Stay hard.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. Mark Thorpe gives us $20. Mark, good to see you, my friend. Looks like you got better looking and probably lost some weight today. You've said repeatedly ASU sports leadership is incompetent and Utah is top notch. They are. Both their recent press conferences reinforce that. Crow and Anderson appeared amateur and awkward. Randall and Harlan were gracious and skilled.
Yes, they were.
What
I agree.
Ray Anderson, the athletic director at ASU, said about West Virginia is embarrassing. I mean, that is, and I think in almost any other instance, that may be a terminable offense. You may be gone. You may be fired for that. And yet at Arizona State, he probably got an extension.
Yep.
And I only half jokingly say that. He said, I'll never go to Morgantown. I'll send one of my assistants. That's the nice way to say it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Morgantown. I'll send one of my assistants. Okay, cool. They're probably going to replace you, or should, but they won't because Michael Crow's a buffoon.
Mm-hmm.
But it's remarkable that passes for professionalism these days.
Yeah, I just think that, and we were having conversations over the weekend. Like, dude, I think when people are friends and they're comfortable, they'll do low grade business. They'll do crap things, and that's just acceptable. And that's the culture at ASU.
What it is, right? Is what it is. Stan, dude,
bro, don't die on me, please. It's only Monday, bro.
Stan for $5. Just wanted to let you know I'm tuned in and watching via my 23rd century Star Trek equipment.
Oh, nice, dude. Nice.
Okay. How's Interstellar Life treating you, bro?
I'm for real.
Awesome movie. By the way, I watched Gladiator, the editor's cut.
Maximus. The editor's cut is better.
It is so good. I watched it on my brand new 75-inch Fire TV. We got to talk about that.
Can you measure it?
I had a 75-inch Samsung that wouldn't stream live sports. It just kept buffering. And the people at my internet company were like, yeah, dude, that TV's from 2018. Yeah, technology's advanced since then. The TV's from 2018. And it won't stream live sport. The internet connection in the back. Well, I hope you're enjoying yourself. Thank you for watching the show. Gop, what's up, my guy Gop? Good to see you for $5. Any chance the Big 12 adds 2 more this cycle? I do think there's a chance.
Yeah.
The question is, are you willing to be unbalanced to get Gonzaga? Because I don't see 2 teams that fit in this league. I could easily say Cal and Oregon State. All right, good to go. But if you add Cal and Oregon State, you're at 18. Are you really going to go to 19 with Gonzaga? Man, that seems unlikely. That seems unlikely to me. It really does. Too much gravy for my biscuits, otherwise known as Better Call Saul, who's been a member for 3 months. Bless you, friends. If you want to be a member, hit the join button. For $1.99, all your comments get highlighted. For $9.99, you get access to our members-only Instagram group, which has been fantastic all through this realignment thing.
Chaos.
Says, thanks, Marlon Shaw. Hey, Monty, remember the PAC?
Hey, Monty.
Did Marlon Shaw give us members? He did. Marlon Shaw gives 10 memberships.
Let's go, Marlon. Strong start to the week, bud. Let's go.
Let's go, Marlon Shaw. Love you, dude. Appreciate that. Thank you, Marlon, for giving 10 memberships. Shout out to Tanner Plummer, who's been a member for 7 months today. Wow, look at you guys with the memberships. Aaron Wilson. Pew, pew. Let's go, Lubbock. You guys understand. And I'm warning you in Austin, in Dallas, Waco, Houston, tell your friends, because Lubbock is now a top 15 market on this show.
I'm for real.
One of the top 15 cities that watch this show. Now, I'm not saying Lubbock is Dallas. It's no different. SMU doesn't deliver Dallas, and neither does Lubbock
County.
And I don't know why I'm changing the twang in my accent to let you know I'm all hat, no cattle.
Look,
but the
Brian
point
Kelly,
is,
settle down, okay?
The point is,
I really don't care if you think it's sus.
pew pew. Let's go, Lubbock.
Family.
Good to see you, Aaron Wilson. Thank you for giving 2 memberships.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. See, my friends. It's
magic,
that simple.
bro.
Hit the like button. Make sure you hit subscribe on the show. Thank you to everybody. We picked up a quick 75. We're at 22,526. Appreciate all of you. Curious, creative, not talented.
Okay.
Who the f*** is that guy?
You seem a little self-deprecating. Okay. I'm not saying you're talented based on your picture, your profile picture, or whatever the avatar.
Yeah, it's like a little black square.
Yeah.
There's not much creativity here, as the name said.
Look here, man.
Real creative.
Yeah.
He gives us $10 to say the Apple deal wasn't going to get approved by enough Pac-12 members. The hope was the big. It didn't happen. This is the better option than the Mountain West Conference and Indy, and therefore the best. Well, listen, guys, we told you about this Apple deal. And the funny thing is, somebody was, I can't remember who it was on Twitter, said that it was like selling, Brett McMurphy, Action Network, had a source say to him, we were going to have to sell Boy Scout and Girl Scout cookies or whatever he said.
No, I think Bobby Robbins said that.
Did he really?
I think, let me double check. I'm pretty sure Bobby
somebody
said
said exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Which was, this is like going door to door, selling candy bars or trying to get your baseball team's travel for the summer paid for. Like, you're not a minor league sport here. This is a Pac-12. The idea that you are going to have to sell subscriptions just to get to where the Big 12 is means you were probably never going to catch the Big 12 in revenue. And that, I know that the reports have varied widely, but I'm going to go with what we've reported for the better part of 8 months on this show. It was $20 million. And that's not going to get it done. And again, I just asked Stanford and Cal. If $20 million in the Pac-12 was what you were going to take, okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
But do you really think you can take $23 million from the ACC? And let's be generous, Florida State ain't giving you $23 million. But let's say you get $23 million. Is that a financially viable athletic department?
That was Bobby Robbins.
Man, it was Bobby Robbins.
Yes. And also, going through Brett McMurphy's Twitter, 45 minutes ago, he tweeted that sources are telling him that the Big 12 has no appetite to add any of the Pac-12 schools or San Diego State. The quote is, "We have no interest in doing anything. We're done."
I think San Diego State's dead on arrival in the Big 12.
I just think they made a fool of themselves. And I'm not even trying to be that guy that's hating or anything. I legitimately think if you're Brett Yormark, San Diego State is that program where you're like, dude, like, why would we want to add you? Okay, sure, you could be a budget ad, but the problem is Adela wants a pro rata that she deserves. And I don't think there's any getting away from that. Like, if you're a San Diego State fan, you're probably tired of that being held over your program's head. But when you're going to say something so brazen, so in the face of the process, and you're going to say something that displays that you have no idea how a television contract works, or you have no idea what a pro rata actually is in reality, that's when you lose guys like Brett Yormark who are operators. It's one thing to be philosophically different, right? If San Diego State truly understood what a pro rata was and they were just pushing and maybe they were just a little philosophically different, you can kind of massage that through conversation. But if you're going to come out here and make an idiot of yourself saying things like we deserve a pro rata as a G5, you don't know what a pro rata is. And it really begs the question of, are you really worth the trouble? Because you're not a Power 5 school at this point. So, and we haven't even gotten to the $34 million exit fee. So if you're Brett Yormark, I just don't think San Diego State makes a lot of sense. I am a bit surprised if, and again, I'm not questioning Brett McMurphy, very reliable, not typically wrong, but if that is indeed true that the Big 12 is not interested in Pac-12 schools, I'm a little surprised that they are passing on Oregon State. That is a bit surprising to me.
It's not surprising to me. I think I'll just go back to what I said 5 minutes ago. How does the Big 12 operate at 18 or 20 teams? I don't think it's possible. I think the scheduling in a conference, and I want to be gentle here, but you're not the Big 10. You don't have the infrastructure financially to go and add another 10 people just to handle scheduling, because that's what the Big 10 is having to do. The Big 10, because now they've added Oregon and Washington, they're going to schedule up. So they have to staff up to schedule up. They're talking about hiring 5 to 6 people. You're the Big 12. You're going from 10 to 16, making schedules. How are you going to do 18 or 20? Do you know? And you don't, but it is really difficult to schedule properly travel cost, logistics, exams. Hey, can we have Arizona out in Morgantown when Arizona has midterm exams? Well, we need to, hey, is that setting the student athlete up? Hey, can we have Arizona basketball on a Midwest 5-game trip when, hey, it's Christmas break and
no,
or hey,
No.
because you're gonna have to pay for more mental health. They've already talked. This has been and I'm so thankful this is being talked about. But these conferences that are expanding, the Big 10 and the Big 12 mainly, they're going to have to add mental health advocates for their student athletes because they're concerned, and not football and basketball, whose travel is not going to change. These lower level sports, they're volleyball teams that aren't used to being on the other side of the country for a week and a half, 10 days at a time. They're worried about how that's going to impact their kids scholastically. They're worried about how that's going to impact their mental health.
Which they should be. That's part of this process. But I maintain, and this is what I feel like, excluding you, because I know we've talked about it, but I feel like most people in this conversation don't want to talk about and are unwilling to say is it doesn't matter if you don't want these kids to go through the mental health issues. They're going to go through mental health issues because conference realignment dictates that Stanford obviously they haven't joined the ACC, but if that does happen, you're literally dictating to that rower, that volleyball player, that you got to go across the country for 10 days because of the travel schedule and what all this looks like. So it's everything from being jet lagged to not being home and sleeping in your own bed to class online to everything. So,
and it's funny you bring up class online. What's one of the biggest concerns with all this? That these kids will become further attached to their electronics and less attached to human beings.
Yeah.
And I see everybody asking about, hey, what is the ACC going to do here? And you guys, I truly don't believe that Stanford and Cal are going to the ACC. It makes so little sense.
But okay, if not the ACC, where? Because I don't think the Mountain West is just a fallback option.
And it might have been John or several people were saying Stanford's going to go independent. Guys, do you understand how difficult it is for Notre Dame to be independent? And how much the window is shrinking. So you now have an 18-team Big 10.
Mm-hmm.
You now have a 16-team Big 12. Ask yourself, how many available games do any of those teams have? Because I think it's a foregone conclusion, as been talked about all weekend long. This is not me. I'm just saying, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. Everybody's going to have to go to 10 games a year from now.
Absolutely.
Every conference is going to have 10 conference games. So let me ask you this. If you are Stanford or Notre Dame, and let's say you're independents, what about USC? USC is now expected to win the Big 10 or compete for it every single year. Do you still want to play Notre Dame? Notre Dame, I think, 13th team in the country in the coaches poll today.
Yeah.
You have 10 Big 10 teams that you got to play every year in a much improved Big 10. UCLA, Nebraska, look at the way that Big 10 teams are trending up.
Yeah.
So ask yourself, if you're USC, do you still want to schedule Notre Dame? You want to.
Mm-hmm.
It's a marquee game, big TV. Okay, great. Can you afford to if you want to be a college football playoff team? I'm going to tell you can't.
Well, and I think the pressure on being a college football playoff team continues to go up. I mean, again, I don't know how many times we're going to say this, but I have to think it's a lot. Dude, you have to be in the college football playoff to have an insurance policy of survival. You have to. I mean, if you want to be prioritized in realignment, because again, I'm just going to keep saying this too. This is not the last wave of realignment. In fact, in my opinion, realignment's just getting going here. We may get, 3 to 5 year windows where realignment doesn't take place, but I'm telling you, this is not the last time we're going to be talking about stuff like this. So when we're in those windows where the dust is settled, we're just doing what we do in college athletics, like everything's worked out and we're not talking realignment, it's in those times where you define your value for the next conversation. So if you're SC, you need that game. You need a valuable schedule.
If you're Ohio State, who plays Notre Dame September 23rd, you want to keep playing Notre Dame in a 10 game schedule, Big Ten land, when you have 10 Big Ten teams on your schedule already. You want to keep playing them? Notre Dame also plays Pitt. Now, if I'm Pitt, I'm playing Notre Dame. What about Clemson? You think Clemson's going to keep it? What if Clemson does end up in the SEC? I don't think they will. If they end up in the SEC, you got to play 10 SEC conference games. You want to play Notre Dame? Nah, I don't think we do. Notre Dame is on the clock in independence. And I would remind you, why didn't the Big Ten add Cal and Stanford to go to 20? Because like my bro over here says, realignment's just getting started.
Yeah.
They know, the Big Ten knows that Duke and North Carolina may well be available. And look at all the money the Big 12's making in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
We want some of that. We want a piece of chicken. We want some breast meat instead of thighs.
Yeah, can I get a 50 piece?
Yeah, let's go. Give me 20 pieces, and 2 of them had damn well better be Duke and North Carolina. That's why they didn't go to 20. Because they, much to your point, and this is where I credit you on your stupid Stanford and Cal takes. Stanford and Cal cannot be counted on to be championship caliber teams in either basketball or football.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at Duke and Carolina's actually got a pretty competitive. Drake May's a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, Carolina's got to find enough football team.
And they compete and they win. When they win 2 years ago, they won the national championship. Duke is Duke.
Yeah, Duke is Duke.
Now, they haven't done much since Fat Ass blew out his shoe in the tournament.
Yeah, nice Kyrie.
Right? Coach K retired. Okay, they're going through a transition. Anybody not want Duke in their... Raise your hand. Who doesn't want Duke?
Hey, raise your hand. Who doesn't want the ESPN Duke UNC 50 times a season contract?
But that's what I'm saying. Like,
come on, bro.
I think that's why you got the Big Ten not going to 20 teams, because I think they know it's coming.
This is my point about Stanford, though. The only roadblock to Stanford and the ACC is geography and travel. We have to find a solution. For what?
I'll say it.
What? We have to find a solution for travel.
No, we don't. Stanford and Cal need to go into the Mountain West.
No.
There is no way.
The Mountain West. Okay, here's the problem. The Mountain West, we can sit here and dream about, oh, the Mountain West is going to expand, and they're going to have a $12 million TV contract, and everything's going to be great. The reality is they're not going to be a Power 5 conference. They're not. And the Power 4 conferences are going to continue to widen that gap.
Are you just trying to piss me off today? Is that what this is?
You can disagree, but it's the reality of the situation, dude.
Is this piss off Fat Ass Day?
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you.
With all due respect.
I am telling you, Stanford and Cal cannot go to the ACC. It makes no sense from a whole lot. Dude, if you're a fucking engineering student at Stanford, how are you going to take your final when you got Wake Forest tomorrow afternoon? So do you know how hard it is to be a student at Stanford? I don't know why this fires me up. You know what? I just need a Papa Murphy's calzone.
At Papa Murphy's, we do more than just pizza. We do calzones.
Papa Murphy's does calzones?
Oh, I think you mean I do the calzones.
And how do you do it, Dad?
How do I do it? How do I do it?
Oh, well, we do it with fresh ingredients and hand-shredded cheese tucked in a scratch-made dough.
That's how, honey.
At Papa Murphy's, we make great pizza.
Hey, don't forget the calzones.
Order now at papamurphys.com.